Well, this is a fine how do you do, isn't it? So yeah, the too long didn't watch version of this video is the Mario Bros. And Angry Birds remake is cancelled. I was really hoping it wouldn't come to this, but it is what it is. So there were a number of issues that occurred during production, but there were two major ones that really sealed the fate of this movie. The first issue was the budget. Some of you may recall that we raised just around $800 for this movie. That of itself is pretty awesome. The problem came from the fact that the majority of it was collected through YouTube's super chats. In case you didn't know, YouTube takes about 30% of all super chat revenue. As you can see, that's already a huge chunk of the budget gone. Then it gets worse. I was required to pay taxes on the money we raised. So yeah, YouTube took a cut, then the government took a cut, then I was required to work with whatever was left, which was around $500. And I say $500 because I took some of my own money to contribute to this project. Without doing that, it probably would have been closer to $400. And on top of that, inflation has been out of control since 2021. The buying power of the dollar keeps going down, making it harder to obtain equipment or secure filming locations, or even put gas in my car to get to those locations. Hard, yes, but not impossible. That's where the second issue comes in. With the resources I was able to obtain, I attempted to go on 2 separate filming trips to film scenes for this movie. Both trips were failures. Let me ask you a question. How crazy would you say it sounds if I told you I put my own life in danger by not checking the weather? That may sound silly to some of you, but that is genuinely what happened. You see, part of the movie script was the birds were using a small shed to hide from the pigs. And I don't mean it was like a military base or something. I mean, the birds basically lived in this shed. To film such a scene, I obviously needed a shed. I managed to find an off-grid cabin for rent that I thought would work perfectly for the scene. And when I say off-grid, I mean this thing was off-grid. It had no running water, no electricity, no heating. It did have some kind of, I think, storage tank for water and a bathroom. And to be fair, it did have a solar-powered light, so there was that. I had everything ready to go. I had the plushies, I had the equipment, I had the lights, I had a backup battery for the lights. I double and triple checked everything. I knew I had everything I needed to film these scenes. I did not once think about the weather. And the weather is what came to smack me in the face. During that time, the weather was consistently within the 60s or 50s range. I didn't know that there was a massive cold front heading the direction of the cabin the weekend I was going to film. I remember being in the cabin, in the process of filming the scenes I needed, and thinking, why the heck does it feel so cold? I did have a little cell signal, so I was able to pull up a weather app and see that it was now in the 30s where I was. I looked at the forecast and realized it was going to get into the 20s that night. Mind you, I did have a sweatshirt, but I did not have long pants with me. At that point, I had a decision to make. To book this cabin for a single night, it had already cost me a fifth of the budget. I had the second location already booked by this point, so if I left, I wasn't going to be able to try again. And I'm sure some of you have plenty of ideas of how I could have done things differently. I could have found a Walmart and maybe gotten myself a heater or at least some warmer clothes. I could have gone to a motel and spent the night there. The thing is, I didn't have enough money for those options. The only remaining money I had was to make sure I had enough gas to get home. Hell, the only thing I brought to eat on this trip was a pack of Nutri-Grain bars. And I don't mean like a big pack, I mean like a small one. So my options were abandon the attempt to film this scene and go home early, or put my health or even possibly my life on the line to get this scene filmed. As much as I didn't want to let you guys down, I was not willing to take that big of a risk. So I decided to cut my losses, pack everything up, head home, and figure something out at a later date. Then the second filming trip comes along. And this time, I do check the weather, even though this location had heating and power and water and whatever. This one, I had no choice but to put all my eggs in one basket. I used the remaining budget and some of my own personal money to make this trip happen. Also, I tried to get some of my friends to meet up with me at the location to help me film. Unfortunately, most of them weren't able to. To be fair, I kind of expected that. The original series was made when we were teenagers. We're now adults with adult responsibilities. The only one who could make it was Cameron. You guys know him as the voice of Blackbird. But Cameron could only stay for one night. I still thought I could make it work. I thought if I film the scenes that I know are going to be easier with 2 people while Cameron's here, I think I can get the rest of the scenes filmed by myself. So we filmed for a few hours, getting things done at a slower rate than I expected, and eventually Cameron has to leave. Then I keep going myself. I'm trying to get as much filming done as possible, and it's still just not going as fast as I expected. I remember wondering why it was taking longer than I expected. In hindsight, it was because we were so used to using the first take of everything. Yeah, back when we were teenagers, we didn't really have much quality control. Now that I'm an adult, I want things to actually look good. And that sometimes requires multiple takes. So, one thing led to another, and I realized I'm not gonna be able to get this done by myself. So the second filming trip ended in failure again. The budget is gone. I tried my hardest to get things to happen. It just didn't work out. And I did have in my mind some possible options, like what if I did this or got this person's help? But now I'm at the point where any desire I had to see this project through is now gone. Everything I've done for this project so far has been a waste of time and resources, and there is no greater way to inflict a wound on motivation or passion, at least in my experience. And now we're at this point where, honestly, I don't even know how to proceed. I feel like all hope is lost for this project, but it's technically not. I mean, the script is not beyond salvage. If it was, I would just tell you guys the whole plot of the movie right here and now. I feel like I could repurpose the script into a different project I had in mind, but at the same time, you guys have no reason to believe that any such project will come to fruition. As things are right now, I just want to give it all some time and see where things go with these ideas I had in mind. If nothing comes of it, then I will make a dedicated video explaining the plot I had in mind for the remake.